Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're coming back, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a case that is just it's sad. It's really, really sad. It's about a little 10-year-old little boy, Anthony Avalos, um, who was mistreated. He was abused um, in his home by his mother and her boyfriend. But it started when he was 7. Or actually, I take that back. It started when he was 4. Um, his grandfather essayed him. And that's when the reports began. The caseworker that came out said that if, I don't want Anthony around your dad, so he can't be around your dad, and I want you to get Anthony in counseling. And so she agreed to this. And it turned out that she never followed through. Anthony's grandfather was still babysitting from time to time, and she just didn't care. Then came along about probably a year or two later. Her brother introduced her to a fella by the name of Kareem. And Kareem was in a well known group here in California, and he moved in with Heather, which is the mother's name, and all of her children. And it did not go well. I think that it was just downhill for Anthony and his siblings. It was stated that there would be cases brought up um, with CPS. Um, Over 12 caseworkers, social workers were involved. And they were supposed to look out for Anthony. They were supposed to look out for Anthony and his siblings. The reason the case got started is because one of Heather's other children, would go and visit their dad. And the dad noticed that there was bruises on his son. So then he called and made a report, and nothing was done. He then called the police, and nothing was done. So he decided to take matters into his own hands, and he decided, well, you know what? I'm not going to give Heather back. Give my son back to Heather when she comes to pick him up. So he refused, and so it got CPS involved. But the call that was given to the one particular social worker named Barbara had called, and she did her job, I guess, protocol. But on the call, she was laughing, and they were joking about what had happened with this little boy. And so I say that to say, if we're not going to have compassion and empathy for the children, and when we go to school, we want to do a particular job, we should love our job. And so, with that being said, caseworkers and social workers need to love their job, and maybe they would do a better job at it. It's not for everyone. It's a hard job to do because you see so many horrible cases that go on, and it's just not it's not an easy job. But if it's not the job for you, um, especially dealing with our children that are in horrible situations, then I think that they need to look elsewhere for other work. This was reported, Anthony's case was reported, and the teachers and the principals, they were reported, and then family members were reporting that abuse was going on, and nothing was taken seriously. It went from agency to agency. There was one particular social worker that was involved that just kind of passed the buck. He pampered paperwork, often to say case closed, there was no evidence found. um, put false reports into different case files. And so, they went over his head. One of the family members, when they reported um, about the children being abused, this guy didn't do anything about it. So they decided, well, we'll go over his head. And come to find out that when they went over his head, he ran that agency. So then he decided, well, you know what? We're not going to deal with you no more. We're going to get someone else in here. And so they transferred it over to another agency, where this agency was only involved for 1 month and closed the case. There are reports that Kareem, the boyfriend, would make the children fight each other until he was satisfied with the results. He would make them gang up on each other from time to time. And all of these reports were being told to the teachers by the children. And when the caseworkers or the police would come to the school or to their home, they would tell them, yes, this is going on. My question is that when they go out to the home to do the emergency intake, why do they interview in front of the perpetrators? Why do you sit and talk to the child if the mother and the boyfriend are abusing them, and you're going to sit down and talk to them in the presence of these perpetrators? Of course they're going to say no. And that's coming from experience from when I was a child in foster care. I mean, before I was in foster care, when they came out, we were told that if they come out, they're not going to remove you from the home. So you better not say anything. So of course it's like, okay, everything's going great. You don't interview the child in front of the perpetrator. So this happened time and time again. When they would go to the school, the children would tell them these things. And then later they would say, oh no, I made it up, or it didn't happen. Despite the bruises on the children, visible bruises on the children, and nothing was done. Little Anthony had bruises all on his, everywhere. You could see them. They would have cuts on their ears. They would say that Kareem would pull them and twist their ears or slap them across the face, or he just did unimaginable, unthinkable things to these children. And these poor children would have to endure that on a daily basis. Heather was made to go to class. She was made to go to these volunteer classes. And she would even confront the children in front of the social workers that she would go and see. And that was reported. One social worker did report that she was hostile. But then Heather would give another excuse and say, I'm just having a hard time. I'm with the children day in and day out. So that was her excuse. And they accepted that. To me, I think that when a child is reported, and I think I've said this in a previous video, when there is a child case and the intake, the emergency social worker that goes out there needs to be some type of law put in place that with any child that it's reported that they're being abused, or it's reported that they have bruises, that they be removed immediately from that home and investigated. You can't go out and investigate a case just by sitting and talking to someone in a certain period of time. You can't do it. So these cases need to be handled a little bit better. These are our innocent little children that cannot help themselves. And they're being told, if something happens, call the police or report this. And when they do report it, nothing is done. They're sent back to these monsters to be taken advantage of. I think that the system needs to be overhauled. I think that they need to place these children in a secure place for 72, even a week, so that they can be examined by a doctor, they can be examined by a psychiatrist, and they can tell what's going on. That did not happen. They were often made to stand in corners in a sitting position without the chairs for hours on end. And if they got tired, then they were punished. And that was from one of the siblings that testified on at the trial. This little boy had endured so much over his short life that no child should have to endure. There was a note that he wrote for his teacher, Miss Bell. And Miss Bell was a teacher that said that this little guy was just as bright, that he had a bright future, that he loved school, that he was just a pleasant kid to be around. And at the end of this school year, he wrote Mrs. Bell a letter. And I do have it. Just give me a moment to read it. It says, "Dear Miss Bell, thank you for teaching me everything you could. It was such a blessing to meet you. I just hope that when I'm going to 6th grade that you can come to the new Vista so I can see you still. I hope that you can come to my high school, middle school, and college. Love, Anthony." Now that makes me cry. It makes me want to tear up because that would be his last letter. He would go home for the summer and be tortured. And apparently, Anthony went into his mom's room or whatever the case may be. We don't know. We'll never know. And said something to the effect of, "I like girls and boys." And so this monster, and I'm going to call him a monster, Kareem, took matters into his own hands because he didn't like that Anthony said that he likes girls and boys. And Anthony would be tortured over a 2-week period. He would pick Anthony up from his underarms and drop him from the 2nd floor over and over on his little head. His siblings said that they would hear him moaning after this torture. He would just moan. When asked why Heather did not take him to the hospital, she said because Anthony said that he was tired and he just wanted to sleep. So she'd let him sleep. But Kareem would go in and pick him up and just drop him. And this went on, like I said, for a 2-week period. He was malnourished. And one morning, Heather would go in to wake little Anthony up. And he wouldn't wake up. So the sister said that Heather threw water on him to try to wake him up. And he didn't wake up. They said that he was stiff. And this precious little boy's life ended. I don't understand. Yeah, I do understand because they were placed in a home with their uncle and his wife for a period of time. And the uncle, when Heather did come to pick the kids up, they didn't want to go back. And so the uncle says, "No, I'm not going to allow them to go back with you." So the police got involved, and this police officer said, he believed the children. He called it into DCFD, and he told them, "I'm going to leave the kids here with their uncle because I believe the children." And the children told me some horrific stories of what goes on with their mom. So I'm going to leave them there. And the lady says, "Well, how long are you leaving them there?" And he says, "Until you guys come out to do your report." The caseworkers, I know that they're overwhelmed and I know that they have a big caseload. I know that. But I think that we need to have some sort of liaisons to go in or to help out with the paperwork or to do something so that when these cases are they come up, that the children can be taken out of the home and placed into a loving environment. And I know why Heather didn't want to give up custody, because she was getting child welfare. She was getting welfare services for the children. And so that's all she was concerned about. It's sad that we have to continue discussing, and I'm going to continue discussing it. I don't care how hard it is for me. Because if we don't discuss it and we keep pushing all of these cases under the rug, nothing will ever be done about it. We have to get these videos out. We have to share these videos about the children, because even as this was back in 2000 and I want 2018 that this happened, and it's still happening to this day. There are still children out there probably going through it as we speak, and people are just turning a blind eye. And I think that when cases are reported, if you don't see that something's getting done, go to the next step and go to the next step and follow through so that these kids can get the help that they need. So that maybe if this video could save one child, then I'll do it. Because we can't keep having this happen to our children, the Gabriel Hernandezes or the Noahs or Anthony or the um, Dakotas. We can't. We've got to save our children, and we've got to do more. We've got to do better by our children. This little boy's life could have been saved had he been taken away. His siblings wouldn't have had to go through the trauma that they had to go through all those years with this monster, the two monsters that they looked up to that was supposed to protect them. But instead, the family would go on to sue the state, and I believe they won three, or I think I have it written down. I think they won a substantial amount. I believe I want to say $34 million that they won. And even though that does not bring Anthony back, maybe it will bring some awareness to clean up CPS and CYDFC. It will help get the system cleaned up and revamped so that this won't happen to another child. I am so glad that Anthony uh, got justice, I should say. Heather and Kareem got life in prison. And I'm not one for the death penalty. I don't believe that we should, you know, do that. But in some cases, yeah, I believe we should do it. I wholeheartedly believe that when children are unalived by their parents or SA'd and just put through miserable stuff, that yeah, that is a case for that. And I hope that, which I doubt that they will, sit and think about, and that they're tormented, I guess, every single day that they're breathing air. And I say pray for them, because as hard as it is to want to just strongly dislike them, we've got to pray. So I say pray for, first of all, Anthony Avalos' family and all of his siblings. I pray that they get the help that they need. I pray that they could go on to live a normal life. And it is possible. It's very possible. I'm sitting here today living a normal life. Is it going to be days that are hard? Yes, it's going to be days that are hard. Is something going to trigger you? Yes, something will trigger you. You're always going to have that sort of PTSD. But if we get the help for our children when allegations are first being brought up, maybe it'll save a lot of heartache for the ones that are left, that were blessed to be left here. So little Anthony Avalos, you little angel, I'm sure that you're looking down and that you're not suffering anymore. So if you look at this video, please give it a like, a thumbs up, and please share it. Because if we don't share these cases, if we continue to look over and say, oh, it's not our problem, then it's going to keep happening. So please share. Please share these cases so that we can get something done. Maybe it'll get into the right person's eyes. They can see it. And we can start making a change. If we all work together. If you see something, say something. And if something's not being done, say something again, or tell the next person, or do something. But we've got to do better by our children. We've got to help our children so that they're not being abused and taken advantage of by the people that they're supposed to trust and look up to. And if we have social workers that just look the other way, or because they're too lazy to get out and go and see what's going on with a particular child or something that has been called in, because they want to sit behind a desk and say, oh, we did it. Everything was okay. Nothing was, because you don't want to do your job. If we continue to let people like that work for our children, then it'll stay the same. We've just got to do better by our children. But until next time, I hope you all have a blessed day. Please share this video. Please give it a thumbs up. And please hit the subscribe button. I'd love to have you here. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you for my people that do watch my videos. Thank you so much. Please come back. It's interesting. We do cooking and true crime. A little bit of everything over here. So thank you for watching. And until next time, bye.